Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Better Bots. I'm super excited today. We're going to be talking about the science of email sending. We're going to take it from the very top. We're going to purchase a domain, set up a sending service, and then we're going to check out our spam scores using both of those sending services. And if you just want to see what the results look like, just skip to the end. But if you're a little bit newer and you want to see the actual setup process, make sure to watch all the way through. Now, you will see two different tools used in this video. You're going to see me use MailGun and Google Workspace. And you might think that I'm showing how these two different tools affect your email deliverability, but in all reality, what we're actually showing here is the difference in authentication strategies when sending emails. So one of these, MailGun, uses DNS verification, domain verification to verify who's sending the email versus OAuth 2. The other one uses OAuth 2. And one of these, just to understand very simply, one of these basically authenticates you as an entire domain, and the other one authenticates you as a user. And so what does that actually mean? Well, under the hood, both these tools are really doing exactly the same thing. They're allowing a user to authenticate with an API, and then that API authenticates with SMTP and sends the email through SMTP. And if you don't remember what SMTP is, it just stands for Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. And I do have an entire another video on exactly what that is and how it differs from sending emails through the API. But just know that it's the original way that we send emails traditionally. Now, with MailGun, they use a traditional API key. It's just a string. They require like two-factor authentication when you log in, but the token is never going to change. It's always going to be the same for that account. And every user that wants to send from that MailGun account will use that same API key because all of these users are verified as a domain. So info, sales, user, all three of these users are verified as the same domain. And so they all can use the same API key. Now compare that to Google Workspace. Google Workspace, under the hood, they use Gmail, and Gmail's API requires that you authenticate with OAuth 2.0. And basically what this means is that each user must authenticate as an individual user. You can't just authenticate as an entire domain. Everybody has to sign in individually as their own individual user. Plus, the tokens constantly expire with OAuth 2, so you never have one token last longer than with Gmail specifically. I think it's like an hour. Other people, it's like a day. So, these are constantly expiring tokens, makes them really secure. It requires a two-step handshake verification to actually even generate these tokens. You have to use a code first, and then a token will be generated from there after you verify against the receiving API. And then on top of that, a lot of these big apps like Google and specifically Zoom recently just made this change as well. You actually have to undergo a verification process as the developer of the application with the API holder, the resource holder, which, like I said, could be Zoom or Gmail or just whatever you need. So it's a very secure process for actually being able to access your data on your behalf. So in summary, Google Workspace and OAuth 2, they do handle a lot of the domain authentication for you that's normally required to be done manually with other traditional SMTP providers. And most of what you see in the technical part of this video is going to be covering the plumbing of your email that you're sending with the sending system that you set up. But in all reality, your sending behavior and the content that you send will always have a much higher impact than just your plumbing alone. So it doesn't really matter if you're sending through SMTP or through API. Your sending behavior still has a much bigger impact on just the way that you send it alone. However, using really good plumbing and the most up-to-date and secure systems to send emails can give you that much more of a head start when it comes to landing in the inbox and verifying as an authenticated, secure sender through the email client's eyes anyway. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and dive on in and see how to get this set up.
So, of course, one of the most important factors to consider when choosing Workspace or MailGun before we get into the technical side of it is just the limitations and the pricing. So, my current plan is the Foundation trial, and it's free, and I can have 6,000 emails per month, and I can go up to 50,000 all the way up to 3 million or more, depending on how much I want to spend. So, going up to 50,000 per month takes me to $35 a month, and it goes up from there. Versus Gmail sending limits 500 a day, messages per day. or $2,000 per day on a paid trial. On a paid account, but on the trial account, it's going to be $500 per day per user. So this is per Gmail user that you have in Google Workspace. And I think the minimum amount you can really spend on Google Workspace now anyway, since they got rid of G Suite, is $6. I may be wrong on that. They may have a free trial account, but I'm pretty sure all you can do is the $6 minimum. So that's another consideration to take into account when choosing which one to send from.
All right, so to kick things off, the very first thing we are going to need is a domain. Of course, a domain name. So since the title of this video is going to be something like learning about email marketing and the science of email marketing, we're going to go with learnemailmarketing.com. Now, when you want to choose where to get a domain from, there's really tons of places. I always go with Google Domains because that's what I just have had the best luck with. You can also go with Namecheap if you want to save a little money on some of their promos they have. GoDaddy if you want to save the most amount of money, but in the future, you're going to have to pay whatever they want you to pay in the future. Otherwise, you're going to have to map it over to a different provider anyway. So you're just kind of saving headache now, but giving yourself one later. Domain name or domain.com, whatever. I mean, it's just as expensive. So I always just go with Google Domains. It's flat $12 a year, and it's really nice and easy to manage, which you'll see here in just a second. So I'm going to go ahead and buy this domain and come on back when I'm done. All right. I have now purchased this learnemailmarketing.com domain. And as you can see, I have no services attached to it, no email services. I do have privacy protection, but I own this domain for the next year. So this is step one to start your email marketing. So boom, done. Now, the whole point of this video is to show the different ways to actually accomplish email marketing and the different tools that are available, namely Google Workspace, Go High Level, and MailGun. So let's go ahead and dive in with what everybody kind of does by default, which is MailGun. So I just purchased this domain. And just to show you guys the DNS settings, there is nothing here. So I have no records here. The only records that I do have here so far are all of these required records that Google Domains actually adds for me. So I didn't add any of this manually. It just automatically adds all of this whenever you purchase a domain through Google Domains. And if you want to look into what that is, I'll see if I can find some documentation on what these records actually do. But other than that, there is nothing else connected. There's a couple of name servers, but they just represent these records here. So that is what it looks like fresh off the domain registrar. Now we're going to go sign up for a free MailGun account. And as you can see, MailGun is free and it takes 57 seconds. Now, a little bit about MailGun, why I'm using it. Basically, whenever you use Go High Level, which is one of the best CRMs out there right now, it by default uses MailGun as the email provider. And I want to show you guys what the difference is when using a provider like MailGun versus using the Gmail API and Google Workspace to send your emails. So without doing any kind of domain manipulation or anything, I'm going to go ahead and sign up for a brand new email here at, a brand new account here at MailGun, and give me 1 second. All right, and now that we've gotten our MailGun account set up on the free tier, the first step is to add a new domain. So it should take you straight to the verification page to actually add a domain. You're going to need to validate your email. They're going to send you an email. You'll click on the link and you'll be verified and everything will be good. So now I'm going to just go ahead and add a domain. So the domain that I want to use for this is actually going to be mail.learnemailmarketing.com. So this is going to be the domain that I want to use. My domain is going to be in the US. Advanced DKIM setting, you can choose this. I'll link what this really means down here. But for right now, we can just leave it at the default of 1024. So let's go ahead and add this domain. And it should give us some records that we need to add to our domain name. So let's go ahead and go back to our domain server records and set all of these up. All right, so here in my Google domain settings, I'm going to go to DNS and I'm going to go ahead and start adding these records in. So the first one is going to be a TXT record. So let me go ahead and choose TXT as the type.
And then for the data, I'm going to go ahead and put what they have here. And then for the domain, I'm going to put mail.learnmarketing.com. That way it should look just like how it looks here. Great. And then now I need to do that for this TXT, these two MX records, and then this CNAME record. So let me go through and do all of that, and I'll come back as soon as I'm done. Okay, and now all of the required and recommended records have been added. So let's look at what we did, and let's look at a couple of the quirks that we found. So one is there's two TXT records here, and if you're not careful, you might overwrite it. So make sure that you have mail on the first one that it gives you, and then SMTP_domain key.mail on the second one, or MG, whatever you use for your prefix for this. So just make sure you don't use the same name twice, otherwise you're going to overwrite the value and you're not going to have both records that are needed. On this MX record, only do this if you have not yet set up Google Workspace. So if you just click through really quick and automatically set up a Google Workspace account with your Google domain, you'll have a Workspace MX record pointing at your domain, and we'll show what that looks like in just a second. So you don't necessarily need to do this, but MailGun recommends this if you do not have any other mail services attached to Google domains. So that is, and also make sure that the host name is email.mail or email.mg, not mg.whatever, because you'll get an error with that as well. And then also here in the MX records, it gives you two that you can use, but you can't use the same host name for both. So just make sure that you either change up the host name on one of them, or you just only put one, which is what I did. I just only put the MXA. And if I have issues with that, I can go try to change it up to MXB, but we'll see. So that's everything that's absolutely required to be done to get your domain set up. So now that that is all done, I'm going to go through, I'm going to see if it lets me verify my DNS settings. It's going to take a little while for it to verify all of the records. And once everything gets verified, then I will go through, get my API key, show how to set that up, and we'll see what the first score is. All right, now that my records have been verified and MailGun can see that the records exist on my domain, it's going to give me the two options, SMTP or API. If you're using Go High Level, you're going to want to choose API. So I'm going to go ahead and click select. And then it's going to give me an API key, which you guys won't be able to see this, but it's a nice long string. And that API key will have my domains attached to it. So now that that is done, let's go on over to our high level account and let's see if we can attach it to one of our sub accounts. All right, just to see how to get here, I'm in the agency settings for Go High Level. In case you can't see what the root URL is here, it's app.gohighlevel.com. I'm going to go to settings and I'm going to go over here to MailGun. And I'm going to go ahead and add my API key. So 1 second. All right, and once I paste my API key in my agency settings for the sub account that I'm looking to connect this account to, it'll find my domain that I have connected to that API key, which is learn.emailmarketing.com or mail.learn.emailmarketing.com. And I will save those settings there. So now all of my emails coming from that sub account should come from that domain. So now let's go ahead and go to that account and let's send an email. All right, and now I've got my contact set up here from Mail Genius. If you guys don't know what Mail Genius is, it's just a free mail tester that you can use to test your deliverability score. And we're going to go through the report here in just a second once it comes through, but I'm just going to show you that I'm sending from info@learn-email-marketing.com, trying to send from the same person, and the subject is hello from MailGun. So I know that this is not a traditional email marketing template, like a real email, and there's usually a lot more stuff that goes into it. But for right now, this is what we're going to go with because it's just the easiest and quickest way to get a test set up. And we're going to do the exact same body on the other test that we do. So let's go ahead and send this through. So we'll send, and we will wait for a little bit and see what the test results are. All right, and now that our Mail Genius score has loaded, we see that we have an 82 out of 100. And let's look at just the highlights of what this score tells us. It says that Our mail server IP address is listed on blacklist. There's a lot of debate on if this is even really a valid blacklist or not, but it takes a lot of points away for that. So if you want to ignore this, we're technically at a 90, not an 82, but that is just for you to look into on your own. But again, this mail server IP being on this blacklist, a lot of times, a lot of people say that this doesn't mean a lot. So yeah, and then on the HTML best practices. So again, I used a very small email body when I sent this, but MailGun is tracking my opens, of course. So that's what this is. This is the email tracking pixel that they put in here. We also do the same thing with the Gmail app. Our URL is a little bit shorter, but yeah, that's why it doesn't like this. Is it's low ratio of text to image, and the body includes URLs that are too long. So again, it's just that open URL. Everything else on the body is fine. DMARC authentication is not yet set up. I have, again, not set up any other records on my domain other than what you guys saw me set up. So we can set that up later and see how it improves our sending score. And then, of course, we have the domain age is very young. The DKIM record is not set up because I just haven't set it up at all. And the list unsubscribe header is not attached. And we can add that, I believe, in MailGun settings. And so that will give us a point back. The DKIM setting is pretty easy to do. I'll show you how we do that. And then the domain age, there's just nothing we can do about that right now. So just brand new out of the box domain, no other mail service connected except for MailGun's free tier. This is what you can expect. And of course, with any email services, your score will go down over time just because the mail clients will learn your behavior and they will learn your name and your reputation, and they will start dinging you more and more just because that's just how mail reputations go. So now that we have done all of this with MailGun, let's see if we can set it all up with Google Workspace, do the exact same test that we just did using the Gmail app without adding any records or anything like that, and let's see if it makes any difference. So I am going to sign up for Google Workspace here, so it's just me. The business name is Learn Email Marketing for now, let's say. All right, so unfortunately the audio didn't record quite right the first time that I recorded this. So the very first time you log in with Google Workspace, it's going to take you to a little checklist. It's going to ask you to verify your domain, and then it's going to ask you to add some records. But with their new OAuth 2 system, you shouldn't actually have to copy and paste anything. It should just say add them once, and you should be good to go. And those records are going to be in, if you have a Google domain like I do, it'll be automatically under the Google Workspace account. And now, again, this is only possible for sure with Google domains and Google Workspace. If you're using Google Workspace with a non-Google domain, or you don't own your Google, you don't own your domain through Google domains, you own it through a different registrar, that you might have to do all of these record setups manually. So you'll have to copy and paste each of these records from Google Workspace, which it would provide it here during the setup process in the admin console. You would have to manually copy and paste each of those into your registrar DNS settings. But because Google Domains and obviously Google Workspace work together really well, it automatically adds to an entire section of your DNS settings for Google Workspace. So that is another reason. Earlier I said there was going to be a reason why we went with Google Domains, and this is another big reason why we go with that. So this is what your DNS settings will look like after you've actually set up the MX records and everything. You can see I still have the MailGun ones up here. And I can now technically remove this MX record here. I don't technically need it anymore. And because all my MX records are set up down here. So I couldn't record it for the very first time. Unfortunately, the audio was messed up, but that's what you should see when you are done walking through the domain setup in your new Workspace account. All right, great. So now I'm going to go ahead and just log in with Google with that new Gmail user now that I have Workspace set up. And I'm only going to sync replies for right now. I think that's all we need. Go ahead and log in with Google, go through this whole process, make sure I understand what access I'm giving it. I am going to use this to send Gmail on my behalf. Continue, and then give it just a second. And now we will be set up to be using Google Workspace instead of Gmail. So great, now that one is, instead of MailGun. So now that is added, go ahead and add that. I will refresh, make sure my auth status is verified. Great, and now we are good to go. So I'm gonna get another Mail Genius test set up. I'm gonna send again, sending the exact same body that I sent before, and let's see how the test compares. All right, perfect. So now we have our test loaded using Workspace, and we have our test loaded using MailGun. And so it looks like Workspace just off the bat did perform a little bit better than MailGun. And so let's see what MailGun got dinged for that Workspace did not. So looks like we have a mail server IP address on some blacklists, and I've heard a lot of people say that these blacklists don't really matter much if you actually go to the website and check it out. A lot of times they make you pay. That's normally the big way to tell if it's a legit blacklist or not. Is if they make you pay to get your domain removed from their blacklist. It's usually a little bit less legitimate of a blacklist. Now, in the HTML body best practices, of course, MailGun is using a tracking pixel to see if I open this or not. And it's pretty long URL compared to the amount of text that I have in here. Again, this is just a very basic email. It's not an actual marketing email as it should be, but this is just a quick test. And on the Workspace side, on the Gmail side, I do have a broken link in here, and that's just because I have a testing link for my own tracking pixel. So this normally isn't in there, but either way, it's still kind of got about the same amount of ding. It's got one less point ding than what they have in MailGun, but overall, it's still not the best. And then, of course, we have the DMARC authentication is not set up because I have not done anything with my DMARC records. I haven't set those up yet. So that's going to be failing regardless of how I actually send, no matter what tool I actually send. And then, of course, my domain age is young, so that there's not much I can do about that. It looks like DKIM signing did not get set up yet inside of MailGun. I have not set that up yet inside of MailGun, and I have not yet set up the list unsubscribe header inside of MailGun. I do have that set up here inside of my Gmail account, so I would have one less point, so you can count this as a 92 instead of a 93 because I forgot that I added that. But everything else with the DKIM and all of these other blacklists and spam assassin, reverse ENS, all these things, these are all looking good, and the SPF record is already managed by Google Workspace, so that's also really nice. So overall, Workspace looks like it's a little bit better. And if we want to look at the raw email itself to see what really the big difference is, the big difference is that here with MailGun, we're doing a raw SMTP transfer. So MailGun is just sending this via SMTP. They are using an API key against their own API to verify the sender, and then that API call, that HTTP call can be mapped to your domain, and then that can initiate the SMTP protocol. So you're basically talking to MailGun's API, and then MailGun's API is talking to the SMTP server and passing on your email. And with ours, we are doing a very similar thing, except we are using the Gmail API. And so we are connecting via HTTP using OAuth 2. And so OAuth 2 is, of course, much more secure than SMTP records because OAuth 2 is constantly refreshing, and it requires a much more in-depth security review process specifically for the Gmail API. For developers to even be able to create an app that can access the Gmail API. So, of course, it's going to get a little bit higher of a score on the email scoring list, but it is more expensive. Workspace starts at $6 a month per user versus something like MailGun. You can be on a free tier and you can have as many users as you want because you're verifying at the domain level. So there you have it. That's from just cold start to sending your first email. That's what you can expect using MailGun versus using Google Workspace. And now there's lots to do to make sure we optimize our inbox delivery. But it seems like what it is to me is that with using the OAuth 2 credentials and using the Gmail API with sending, it seems like we're just kind of taking a big shortcut in terms of deliverability and the amount of work that's actually going to be necessary to get ourselves and our clients set up for success, because you guys notice all the records that I had to add for MailGun. Well, everybody has to do that. Every client that I have has to do that as well, versus if they already have a Google Workspace account or they already have a Gmail account, all they really have to do is come here and sign in with Google. So it's just a little bit simpler, in my opinion, when you connect with Gmail. But in terms of deliverability and in terms of actual sending reputation, sending ability, it seems that Workspace is scoring a little bit higher, just straight off the back. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know what video you'd like to see next. My next video idea was showing you how email warming actually impacts this with this brand new domain. We're going to do some email warming over the next few weeks using our app. So I'll show you what that looks like, show you how it impacts our deliverability. And then if you guys want to know more, you can sign up on the list and actually see the email sent to you using the Gmail API itself. So I hope this all helps. I hope this makes sense. And thank you again for watching. And please make sure to subscribe for future videos. Thanks so much.